Okay, we're live.
Everybody's good? All right. Okay, thank you everybody for obviously for joining. I'm just going to repeat today, we have a little bit of a hodgepodge of what we're doing. Some faces you can see, some you can't. So when it comes time for discussion, Terry Lee, I can see your hands obviously. Paul, I won't be able to see your hand. So if somebody starts talking that I can't see, and we just don't want to talk over one another. So let's just try to, I'll see if I can do this without everybody talking over one another. Let's see, and we'll do roll call votes again. Let's see, that seemed to work out well last time. I think that's it. Okay. So we will go to the consent agenda.
Can I ask who's on the call besides the normal people? Who's Scott?
So I don't see Scott. What's Scott on?
It's
Did I miss?
Yep.
Did I
Oh,
misspeak?
yeah. So Scott's on. So Scott Batten, Bob.
He's the terminal manager for Ocean State Transit. He's on at the direction of his supervisor just to listen to a public meeting.
All right.
Okay. And then I'll go through who's on. So if you're on the phone. So we have myself, Bob Ross, Paul, Cheryl, Jeremy's on, Terry Donovan, Andrew Hennius, our attorney, Robin Serio, Marie Ahern, Lee Kissler, Jim Marinakis, and then Scott Batten is in, and we have obviously the public listening. And Cheryl, where'd Cheryl go? Cheryl, you still on the phone?
I'm here.
Okay, good. Okay, let's go to the consent agenda.
Okay, under consent, we have the approval of minutes from April 14th, which was our last meeting. We have a list of non-renewals, and this is due to the fact that we have a June 1st deadline for notification of potential layoff. Note that there are a number of teachers that are listed on the spreadsheet that was provided. Many of them are listed because of the possibility of movement of other people that could impact their employment. At the end of the day, when everything is said and done, I would anticipate that several of these individuals would be called back, but there's no guarantee at this point because we don't know the movement that will happen at the job placement, job fair process. That is tentatively scheduled for later this month. My goal will be to get it done before the next meeting so that we can already start thinking about callbacks as early as possibly next meeting, but definitely the first meeting in June before we get out of school. And that is good for us in terms of the potential for collecting unemployment costs over the summer. So that's kind of the timeline. But this is a required notification due to the June 1st deadline. There was quite a bit of discussion about potentially moving the deadline later. That did not happen. So I am acting to make sure that we're protected as a district for potential reductions. I also have the monthly bills and one homeschool approval for a student for the remainder of the school year.
Any questions on anything? Okay, so if we can have a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
And do we have a second?
Donovan, second.
Any further discussion? Okay, so let's take a roll call vote. Member Kissinger,
Aye.
Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member McFadden.
Aye.
Okay, and I'm an aye. Okay, motion carries. Okay, we have correspondence. There's quite a bit. So let's see, we have the Town of Exeter's communication regarding the vote on the school bond. We have the superintendent's response to the Exeter Town Council's request for some clarification on the budget. We have the Smithfield School Committee resolution. distance learning grading decisions. Each school, we have their plans enclosed. And the superintendent's letter to the teachers on Teacher Appreciation Week. Any comments on correspondence?
Pull two.
Okay, we're on correspondence. We don't have to pull it. So you have some comments on number 2?
Yep.
Go ahead.
So this correspondence from the superintendent to the town of Exeter stemmed from a communication that I made regarding the advertisement of the all-day referendum. And in there was a slight change in format. So it was qualified, that is, the debt service was qualified, but it was not quantified. And I hope everybody knows what that means. In other words, the operational budget amount was listed. It was listed in its entirety. However, the conflict I had was the percentage that went to the town of Exeter. West Greenwich may not have a problem with their figure. That reflected something other than the total bill of 4.39%. And so my problem again was that the actual number for the debt service wasn't included. So in the past, the practice has been to put one figure out there, and in this case, we qualified the advertisement to include the operational budget separate from the debt service. Didn't quantify the debt service, and I didn't agree with that. That's it.
Okay. Anyone else have any questions or comments?
I do have another question under correspondence. In the last meeting, and it's not on the agenda, there was a mention of asking the governor to forego our all-day referendum.
Well, hold on, Paul. We're going to talk about the budget process under 3 new business C.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Anybody else have anything? Okay. All right. So we have we're on F, the 2021 budget.
So there's not much to say about the budget. We have a school committee approved number. We are currently working on finalizing staffing decisions and getting the number down to at least the number that was approved at the school committee level. As you recall, there were some projected savings based on some staffing reductions and some enrollment reductions. All of those figures are being solidified now. Schedules are being finalized. The high school schedule will be close to complete next week. And I'll do one more pass at the high school schedule to confirm the needs for staffing there. I continue to monitor enrollment at the elementary levels to make some final decisions around staffing there. And by the end of the month, excuse me for one second. Kaden, I'm on a phone call right now, so I cannot come play. Sorry. At the end of the month, we should be in a better position to be able to report our number to match what the school committee approved at a maximum amount.
Okay. Any questions? Okay. Let's see. New business 3A, update on virtual learning and the end of year events.
All right, so most of my comments will be related to end of the year events because that has been the bulk of discussion at this point in the district and across the state. We continue to implement distance learning. The feedback has remained quite positive. I know I reported out at the last meeting with some very specific data from the survey that went out. Teachers are doing an unbelievable job in in putting this in place, something that's really new for all of us. So I don't have any concerns at that level. Certainly, we're still responding to questions and things that come up, glitches and so forth, but I think the response has been rapid. We are addressing every need that is brought to our attention. So I'm really happy with that. The bigger issues that we're facing right now are how to handle some of the year-end events, particularly the big events, the celebratory events, given that there are some very strict restrictions on what we are allowed and not allowed to do. So I'm gonna focus on 3 of them, starting with Honors Night. Honors Night will happen. Mr. Crom is the advisor, and his plan is to hold a YouTube live event at the end of May or beginning of June, and really kind of depends on how he's able to get information from the people that are giving the awards out. He's asking for certain information that he'll include on the live event. There would be a host, which would be John, and it will stream some pre-recorded messages from the presenters, along with some welcome messages from me, perhaps from Claudine, from the principal. And then each senior award would be identified. The senior who's been selected would be named, and their photo would appear on the broadcast. So it's pretty involved, but he's been kind of mapping this out for a few weeks now. And when the plans are finalized and he's ready to go live, we'll send that information out so anybody can see it. We are really focusing on the senior awards and not the junior awards, because the seniors will be leaving us. And so we want to do something special for them. The juniors we can incorporate into an event once some of the restrictions across the state are lifted later, next year, during next year's timeframe. So that's the plan for this. In terms of the moving up ceremony, there is a movie that is being created in place of the moving up ceremony. The movie will include student speakers and staff presentations, all pre-recorded. There are slides that are being worked on for each student to be presented as their name is being read. And the slideshow itself will be aired live for the formal moving up ceremony, and then be available and archived on YouTube for people to see. So Mary Slattery, the principal of the middle school, is working on that along with her team. And we expect that to be in place prior to the end of the school year. You recall that the moving up ceremony for 8th grade students always occurs on the very last day of school anyway. Graduation has been quite the topic of conversation. So I've had several meetings with the RISA organization. We continue to talk about this. We've had conversations with the Department of Education. We've had an individual from the governor's office join our last RISA meeting and really talk about the guidance. The problem that has occurred is that the guidance that was written, the first draft of the guidance that was written, was here are some possibilities of things that you could do. What it didn't list were things that you couldn't do. And so people tried to be really creative in finding ways to celebrate the seniors that met the requirements of what we believe the restrictions were, and also kind of coincided with the here are some ideas for what you could do for graduation. We were asked to submit our plans to the Department of Health. Many districts, including ours, the plans were rejected. And the rationale for the rejection of the plans was not clear in the first round of guidance. So, for example, they said that we could have drive-ins. And after many conversations with the principal of the high school, staff at the high school, students at the high school, families at the high school, they really wanted some semblance of a graduation where kids would experience walking across a stage. We had this whole plan set up. where there was a no contact graduation, where we would do the drive-in option. The kids would be allowed to get out of their cars one at a time, to cross the stage, to pick up the sleeve of their diploma. We would have a video playing in the background, but they would experience the opportunity to walk across the stage. The guidance from the Department of Health has been made much more clear, and there is to be no event where students or families or anyone is allowed to get out of their car for any purpose. So the drive-in would simply be families showing up in their car, keep their windows closed for the whole time. They see the event on the screen, and then they leave. There cannot be an exchange of anything. So they wouldn't leave with their diploma. They would not leave with the opportunity to cross the stage. Needless to say, this has been a really difficult situation and really difficult news for the people that know this news already. I spoke with the principal just prior to the start of this meeting. We had another conversation about it with Rissa this morning. I was on the phone with the governor's office for about 45 minutes today on a couple of different topics. One of them was our graduation. And again, it was reiterated, there is absolutely no movement on this. No one is allowed to get out of the cars. Some of the feedback that we've had from students is that if we can't get out of the cars and we can't experience some type of walking across the stage, then we're not even coming. So I understand the frustration. We have tried so many different possibilities, but the guidance has been much clearer over the last few days. And so we know now what we cannot do. And therefore, based on that information, we cannot provide to our students what they're asking us to provide. We cannot provide to our parents what they're asking us to provide. And I cannot provide to the politicians who have written to me what they've asked me to provide, because all of it is a violation of the restrictions that are in place according to the Department of Health and the governor's office. And as I was told today, if we were to do something that falls outside of the guidance that's been provided, then we would be held completely liable if any contact tracing leads back to the event that we sponsored, which is in violation of the guidelines from the Department of Health. We certainly don't want to put ourselves in that position. So that is where we stand at this time. Based on my discussion at the RISA meeting this morning, it would appear that pretty much everyone is restricting their celebration to a virtual event, a pre-recorded virtual event that they will make live and available perhaps on the same day and time as what was previously scheduled for the graduation. That's where we stand at this time. It's been, the principal has been unbelievable in terms of her creativity and trying to figure something out to meet everybody's needs. I have backed her at every step of the way. I've been on the phone with the governor's office. I've been on, you have no idea how many conferences I've been on. Nothing is going to be allowed. And that is clear as day at this point. Nothing that involves kids getting out of their cars for any purpose whatsoever. So the restrictions are pretty significant, and we can only do what we're allowed to do. And to me, that seems like a virtual event. So I don't know if people have anything to say about that. The graduation alone has been its own full-time job over the last 2 to 3 weeks.
Claudine, may I ask a question?
Yes, go ahead,
Yes.
Jill.
I'm sorry, it's so odd on the phone. Jim, I'm sure you've done everything possible. I mean, my husband's been going through the same thing over here. I guess I'm confused as to their rationale of not, if it's especially at a drive-in situation where it's outdoors and they walk across a stage by themselves or walk across something by themselves. I mean, I guess being as their population has been the least vulnerable with this virus, and they don't come into contact with anybody at a big venue, it's got to be tough pill to swallow for all of you, because it doesn't make any sense to me. But that's just my 2 cents. I wish they could just bend it just slightly, because at some point these kids have to get back to normalcy and get back to school and sports and, theater and everything else. I mean, they can't do this forever.
If the rest of us can go in public and wear a mask, and maintain 6 feet between us, I
I
don't
know.
understand the restrictions. It's stupid.
I don't either. I just think I'm sorry, I don't, sorry. I just feel I don't even have a senior, and my heart breaks for these kids. Just breaks for them.
I think this is all
But I
about,
know your hands are tied.
Oh,
I
what we
understand
can
that,
and
but I
can't do.
don't understand. Hmm?
I said, I think this is all about, we're being told what we can and can't do. They have the power, so they think.
Jim, with regard to North Smithfield, they made kind of a big splash about their planned outdoor event. Are they off too?
They're off too. That's been retracted.
It's amazing how clear these directives are when everything else is as clear as mud. You can ask any
I
business
know it.
about that.
Well, it took
This is
3
disgraceful.
iterations. It took 3 iterations before we got the clear guidance. I mean, even on the conference call that we had today, North Kingstown submitted a plan. They got denied yesterday. Their plan, Coventry's plan, got denied. Our plan got denied. Anything that involved kids getting out of their car for any reason whatsoever, pictures, picking up the diploma sleeve, anything, denied. So it's not just Exeter-West Greenwich. Every single community is trying to do something to match what the want is from the community. And the want of the community and the restrictions from the Department of Health do not match. And, from the perspective of the Department of Health and the governor's office, they are trying to be overly cautious and make sure that Rhode Islanders are safe. So they're coming at this for the right reasons. But it hurts because this is such a big moment and a big event that means so much to the families and the kids. And I don't know how to make it into something that matches what their dream is for graduation. And that's heartbreaking. Every time I talk to the principal about it, she breaks down into tears. It's a horrible situation, but from the other perspective, the Department of Health is trying to be as safe as possible. So again, they're coming at this from a good place, but it's tough.
Just so you
You're
all
a
know,
better person than I am because I don't agree.
I'm with you, Cheryl.
I didn't say I agreed or
I don't believe
disagreed.
it's
I
coming
put
from
up
a
a
good
good
place.
fight, believe me.
I'm sure.
I do
Good, but-
believe you.
No, I think obviously everybody has a problem with it. It's an unfortunate situation and very disappointing for all of our kids and the families. Just so you guys know, I was on a meeting today with the Association of School Committees for the chairs. And because everyone is coming out with some plans that they thought were going to be appropriate within approval guidelines, and they're all getting turned down, we asked Tim Duffy to reach out to the commissioner to come out with a directive, an explicit directive, what can be done. So just so you know that's out there.
Claudia,
Okay.
can I ask you a question?
Yeah, go ahead.
So from a lawyer standpoint, I mean, I can understand some families would be concerned, but I think the overwhelming majority would want this to happen. So why couldn't they sign a waiver? God forbid, I don't know how they could come in contact if they did everything on their own, but there could be no legal document that says we give our child permission to partake in the ceremony. Like nothing like that could happen.
I'm going to turn it over to Andrew because while I'm an Esquire, Andrew's our attorney, so I'm going to let him answer the question.
I'm rooting for the kids. Can't help it.
I'm sorry, Cheryl. Not one that I would be confident in telling you would prevent any any lawsuits, especially when, as the superintendent pointed out, they've been kind enough to come out directly and say, if you do this, you're on your own liability wise. We've told you under no uncertain terms that we believe it's medically risky. I mean, that's pretty strong stuff they put out there. I wouldn't be comfortable at all. I'm sorry. I share everybody's thoughts on the matter. I really do. That's awful.
Everybody's all set on that one? Okay.
Ugh,
Jim, thank you.
No, but yeah.
no,
That's all I know.
Jim, tell Sue, obviously, thank you so much for all the effort and all the tries. And I'm sure, the plans were going to be, acceptable, exciting to the families under the circumstances. So we appreciate all the effort. And obviously, we're all opposed to what has to be done, but need to be in compliance.
Jim, has she said anything, the governor, publicly or through the Department of Health, making the declaration that there will be no drive-through graduations? Or is it up to us to disseminate this information to our district?
So there has been guidance that has been released, and that's part of the issue. The guidance stated that we could have a drive-in event.
Correct.
But
No one gets out.
basically, it's a drive-in event where you show up, stay in your car, and watch a movie on the screen. And it's not what the kids have stated they want. They would be willing to do that if they had the opportunity to get out of the car and cross the stage, which you're not allowed to do. And just for the record, for us to be able to do that, because Sue has been working on that possibility. It's not something that she could just wait on an answer and then, see if there was an available spot and see if we could get the equipment. It was a $10,000 rental for the screen to be able to do that kind of an event. And we were going to figure out a way to make it happen because it's that important to our families and to our kids. But she has canceled her order.
So I guess it goes back to, will there be some statewide announcement that you're aware of through any of the agencies, so that our students and our parents know that this is not a decision that was made locally?
So we have requested a clearer statement from through RISA and through the School Committee Association. Claudine just spoke to that. That was the request today as well. My statement when I made a recommendation that they should adjust the guidance the first time around, because they did adjust it. They sent out a first round of guidance. They sent out a second round of guidance that was clearer. But again, the guidance was on, here are some ideas that you could do. My suggestion was they need to be explicit in what you cannot do.
Right.
And that has been missing. So when the representative from the governor's office came in on the RISA call on Thursday of last week, we asked him to be very clear about what you cannot do. And he was crystal clear. But that was not the same message that many of us interpreted from the guidance that was previously written. We've asked for that statement to be made through the commissioner's office, through the Department of Health, through the governor's office. I haven't seen it yet. I hope it is stated somehow. But we as superintendents are all just at this point making the announcement locally because it's all we have. But again, it's all we have based on direct discussion with the representative from the governor's office. I do not have it in writing at this point.
A bunch of gutless wonders.
But it's okay to go to Walmart.
Oh, yeah.
Exactly. Mind-boggling.
Just like for maximum impact.
Yeah, I go to work
You
every
do.
day. We have to do all kinds of special requirements at work.
Okay.
So Jim, just one final thing, sorry. You said that you were working on something or restricted to something that was, would it be a combination of pre-recorded and live or just pre-recorded?
So you mean in terms of the new plan?
Yes.
I think everything is going to be pre-recorded because we're not allowed to have anybody out in public.
Okay.
And if kids are not going to event that doesn't give them the experience of walking across the stage, we want to have the entire event available for them to view, at least in their family rooms with their families. You know, so we don't want to do partial live and partial pre-recorded. We want to have them have the whole thing on tape for them to see at a time that's right for them.
Okay, thank you.
Let's move on to 3B. So we have the revised school calendar.
So this is a similar discussion to what we talked about the last time we had a meeting. Since the last school committee meeting, of course, we've been extended for distance learning for the remainder of the year, and a statewide calendar was produced that had some professional days built into the calendar, just like they did for April, which was the last time that we revised this. So I have simply built in the state days. They're labeled as a bold S in the calendar. You can see May 6th, May 15th, May 20th, and June 1st are the state calendar days for teacher planning, professional development, and then there is one vacation day built in, just like they did in April, and that is on May 15th. So the other thing that happened is it actually moved our last day of school for students from the 17th to the 16th, because May 15th previously was the senior project presentation day, which only counted as a day of school for seniors. We are going to do senior project presentations differently and virtually. And so now that statewide calendar has the 15th listed as a vacation day that counts towards the 180, that became a school day that it previously was not for all of the students other than our seniors. But however, the 15th was a professional day for staff. So I simply moved the professional day to June 17th as the last day of school for staff. They can wrap up, they can do everything that they need to do in terms of getting final grades in and so forth. But the student release day has been moved from the 17th to the 16th for that reason. I have reported that change to the Department of Ed, and I need to report back to them tomorrow based on the vote of the school committee tonight to approve the calendar.
Any questions on that? Okay, so if we can have a motion to approve the revised 2019-20 school calendar as presented.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
Any discussion? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Member Kissinger,
Aye.
Member Donovan,
Aye.
Member Green,
Aye.
Member McFadden,
Aye.
and I'm an aye. Okay, motion carries. Thank you. Okay, so we're on 3C, discussion process for finalizing the 2020-21 budget.
Okay, so this has been another pretty heavy topic of conversation across the state. I did report at the last meeting that there were conversations around an executive order that would change the way that school budgets are finalized and kind of protect people from gathering to the polls and so on. That was part of my conversation I had with the governor's office today. You know, Andrew and his colleagues across the state have been trying to work on this. We were told initially that an executive order was coming. We have not seen it. We've been waiting for a month. We've been asking. Nothing has happened at this point. I know there's some conflict between what school departments want and what some towns want. The League of Cities and Towns has weighed in, and so there's not really agreement across all of the different bodies around what the executive order should say. When I talked to the governor's office today, I said, listen, we've been waiting a month, and I don't even care if the answer is we're not going to issue an executive order. I just need to know, because if I'm not waiting for anything, I need to move forward with scheduling some kind of an all-day referendum. I also said, if there is no decision by the time I hold this meeting tonight, my recommendation is that we just move forward, assuming we're not going to get anything, because we've been waiting a month, and reschedule our all-day referendum. I think the timing for this discussion is right, given that we just lifted some of the restrictions that were in place, the stay-at-home order. I had a conversation again with the governor's office about what that might look like. How could we safely follow all of the guidance of the Department of Health and do an all-day referendum? And it would require all the things that, if we've been paying attention, are obvious, right? People need to wear face masks. We need to make sure that we do constant disinfecting and sanitizing. We need to make sure that we maintain the social distancing rules. It might require us to hire a couple of extra staff people to ensure that social distancing is in place, or to ensure that everything is sanitized after every person goes in and votes. But given the number of voters that we typically have, and the fact that it's spread out over the entire day and split between two communities, I think it's a reasonable set of rules that we could make work if we went into it knowing that we might have to have a few extra bodies available at each of the polling places. And Kevin Gallagher, who was the person that I spoke to, said that that sounded like a reasonable plan. Again, as long as we could guarantee that we would follow all of the rules, that we would need people to wear face masks and so forth, we could move forward with that plan. And I said to him, you know, I won't have a choice if I don't have anything in place that gives us an alternative by tonight's meeting. It's in the middle of May. The fiscal year ends on June 30th, and the school department budget is typically voted on prior to the town budgets, and they have to get their budgets passed as well. It's hard for them to do that if we don't have a school number. So my recommendation at this point, given that I have received nothing from the governor's office, from the state level, is that I'm assuming we're not going to receive anything, because you know, we've been at this for a month now, Andrew. I would think.
Over a month, Jim. Yep.
Over a month, yeah.
So I think that we just need to move forward with rescheduling. Rescheduling would mean that we need to collaborate with the Board of Canvassers. We need to schedule a budget hearing that would involve the opportunity for the public to participate, and I would rely on Jeremy to help me do that. But I would think that we need to get that scheduled ASAP, and we need to send out a new communication to let people know that now that some of the restrictions have been lifted, and we have the ability to implement the rules that are in place, that we're going to move forward with an ADR. That's my recommendation, and I just need the school committee to weigh in on you know, giving me the approval to move forward with that planning.
Just so you're aware, West Greenwich is planning on having the primaries live, so the Board of Canvassers is aware of all these requirements. So, but you've got my to move forward.
So it's my understanding that the presidential primary, which is being held in June, provides a provision for either mail-ins or in-person casting of votes. So I don't think that runs anything to the contrary to what Mr. Aronakis was saying, but I believe that's what they've advertised for the June presidential primary.
I've got an email that says that West Greenwich is going to have a live vote for the primary.
So those of us who are election officials, there will be at least one polling place for live voting in every municipality, and some municipalities will have up to 3, depending on the size of the districts. So there will be live voting. There are a lot of people who are not interested in participating through the absentee ballot process. Mm-hmm. So everything, I mean, we are up to our eyeballs in the whole setup as far as the distancing and the masks and the transaction guards and the poll pads. Your boards of canvassers are fully involved in this and racing to the finish line of June 2nd. So anything that takes place in terms of an in-person voting opportunity, Board of Canvassers, Secretary of State's office, Board of Election, this will be nothing new to them. It'll just be one more thing on the plate. Other communities are managing in that way too. I would think our biggest hurdle is probably conducting the public hearing, because public hearings are still an issue, and the whole timing about how much time between now and the in-person voting event and a public hearing that has to take place in between.
Agree. I think the other consideration is that the primary would anticipate a much higher voter turnout than the historical turnout of like the school budget vote. And so they definitely want to try to restrict the number of people coming to the polling place, but historically speaking, not quite the same issue for this vote as it is for the primary.
That said, I don't see that we're going to be doing anything differently for the all-day referendum as we would be for the presidential primary, which is, again, in June. Am I somehow mistaken in that statement?
Well, I think we're looking at doing in-person only, not mail ballot.
Right.
Well, I don't know if you have that choice. If you're going to have a public election, I think you got to be able to provide both. I mean, that's the guidance. I think you can't deny somebody the right to vote in any kind of a electoral process, I believe, unless, regardless, I mean, I think we could have mail-ins for the all-day referendum if there wasn't a coronavirus.
For
primaries,
they
however we've done it in the past would be the strategy moving forward. That's what I think.
Right, and that's just an agreement. You know, in other words, if I want to vote in the all-day referendum, I have to go to the Board of Canvassers in Exeter.
You have to show up.
I'm not saying anybody's going to do that, but just saying.
Well, just the primaries have always had the mechanism of absentee voting. It's always been historically low turnout and very little demand for the absentee ballots. But that vehicle has always been there for primary elections, but it has not been there for the all-day referendum. So I would think that that's still in-person voting.
Yeah, I mean, my position, as I think Jim just mentioned, would be whatever. Given that nothing has changed, there's been no executive order, there's been no change from the state as to how they want these to run. The only change you would make from prior all-day referendums are the safety precautions, as the superintendent pointed out. Probably additional people there to monitor in and out, additional cleaning, that sort of thing. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I agree. Okay, Jim, do you just need guidance, like a guidance from us? Do we need to take a vote on it? What are you looking for?
So I don't know that we need to take a vote. That is the process that we've always done, but I didn't want to pursue that process without at least having a conversation with the school committee. I think we're going to need to reach out to the Board of Canvassers and we're going to have to review the timeline to make sure that we schedule the public hearing with the right amount of time between the hearing and the vote. So I just need to review all of those timelines and have the discussion with the boards so that I can come to you with a plan for how to make this work.
Okay.
I can't make the decision all by myself. That's going to require some collaboration with the groups in the two towns who are going to help us to run the election.
I mean, I'm going to interrupt here because I don't think it's a July 1st kind of thing, Jim, because as mentioned earlier, I don't know if it was you or somebody else, the Exeter town financial meeting is in early June,
So
right? So it's already June. It's already May, what, 11th, 12th? So, I mean, if you wait 2 weeks, which brings us to what, May, I'm guessing, 20 something or other, right? And the Exeter Financial Town Meeting is in June, I'm guessing 10th. It's usually in that time frame. I don't know what kind of a window you're thinking that you have to get this done, right? And they need that number. And it's under the charter that they have to have it by a certain time. Am I at all being clear on this? I just don't think the timeline is as long as I think we think it is, because I don't know when West Greenwich's financial town meeting is, but Exeter is like not even halfway through June.
Early June, same as Exeter.
Okay, so that's what I'm saying. I mean, if you wait till a vote from the school committee, which is the next scheduled meeting, which is 2 weeks from now, I don't think there's a lot of planning in there. So
You may have to have a special meeting.
You disagree with that?
I'm wondering what vote we need.
Yeah, I agree. We don't need a vote. Right now, Jim has to look at the public hearing, when we can do it, if we're going to do it via Zoom, in person, how we're going to get that done. And then the time frame of from when the public meeting happens to when we can have the all-day referendum. So I don't know that any votes are needed. I don't know if the school committee needs to meet again on it. It's just a matter of timing of the hearing and the voting. The Association of School Committees, the chair meeting, we talked about that today also. I know RIASC is in communication with the League of Cities and Towns because budgets have to be submitted to a certain time with the towns. So they were going to get more information out to everybody on that. But they did the governor. Hold on, Paul. But they did say the governor.
I know.
Change anything with an executive order. It's all constitutional. I don't know. They were going to provide some feedback on that, but we don't need to vote on it. I mean, it's our normal process, and it's however quickly we can get it done.
I'm just going to walk into this again, and I don't think it is our normal process. The normal process has already come and gone as far as dates are concerned. So I don't agree with you, Claudine. And if Andrew wants to, excuse me, I think I'm talking. If Andrew wants to write an opinion, right, that says we don't have to get involved in identifying a date for the all-day referendum, then we can hold him to that opinion. If somebody comes along and says you didn't do X, Y, and Z, but that's how I think is the safe way to proceed. That the school committee is involved, identifies a date, votes on it, and if you got to call a special meeting for that, that's fine. But if you don't agree with that, Claudine, then why don't we ask Andrew to say, I agree with Claudine, and this is why, and here's the precedents but no, I don't think we've never been down here before. We've always followed whatever the requirements were and it's clearly identified in the school charter or whatever it is.
When I was referring that we don't need a meeting, I was referring to direction as far as if we do an all-day referendum or a different course of action. That was moving towards an all-day referendum. I didn't think we needed a vote on that. So as far as a date for the all-day referendum, I don't know. I mean, Andrew, do we need a vote on a date for the all-day referendum?
I don't think you need to vote on anything right now. I think a lot of it's going to be driven by what the superintendent's able to find out over the next, couple of days, week or so, as to what's necessary, what it would look like, what kind of accommodations have to be put in place. That may or may not require a vote, depending on the information he gets.
All right, Andrew. I mean, so that means that you've checked the law that says superintendent's responsibility versus school committee responsibility, and we're in the clear, right?
That's not what I said at all, Mr. McFadden, but thank you.
Oh, sorry. Well, now you're going to tell me what I said.
No, you're telling me what I said.
Oh, Andrew,
What
he
I
said.
just said is, depending on what the superintendent finds over the next couple of days would drive how the process would work. Is almost exactly what I said.
What I heard was there may be a need for a special meeting of the school committee and make decisions based upon what Jim finds out.
Exactly.
Lee, that's exactly what I said.
Exactly.
Well, I thought I said that too, but it didn't.
Okay, so Jim, it's in your hands right now. If you can, Jim and I will be in communication with Andrew, and we will figure out what needs to be done after more information's gathered.
So I'll work on tomorrow with Robin. I'll have Robin help me do some reaching out, connecting with the board of canvassers from the two towns, just to kind of get a sense of what I think we need to do, based on the rules that are in the charter. But really, just to clarify, we are not changing the process. What we've changed is the timeline, and that's based on the restrictions that are in place during the initial timeline. But once I have a plan, I can certainly let everybody know. We can hold a 5-minute meeting so I can show you the plan. The plan will be dates. Process will not be any different, except that there'll be a plan to meet all of the restrictions and safety precautions, and that's how we can proceed. But the sooner we have that meeting, the better, if that's the direction that we need to go. Because we need to kind of get this done in the quickest possible way within the parameters of the charter as it's written.
Excellent. Okay. Let's go on to 3D, advanced placement test week discussion.
So in the packet was a decision from the Commissioner of Education relative to the fees associated with advanced placement courses. This was a case from Coventry. And if you read through the case, it basically says that if a school requires children to take the test as part of the AP course, as part of their taking an AP course, if the AP test is required, then the school district is responsible for paying the AP fees for all kids. We, in the past, have required students who have enrolled in an AP course to take the test. We have never paid for the fees out of the school department budget. There are an increasing number of AP courses and an increasing number of students who are enrolled in AP courses. We kind of have a little bit of a pass this year, in that because of the pandemic, the AP board has basically made it an option for kids to not take the test. Given the situation, they've made it optional. So because it's optional, we do not have the requirement to pay. However, a decision has to be made for us going forward that if we continue to require kids to take the test if they enroll in an AP course, we must set aside the funds to pay for the test. It's about $90 per test, per AP course that each kid takes. It adds up pretty quickly. It's probably a $20,000 expense, all said and done. I think at the high school, they are contemplating making it an option for kids, and that takes away this requirement. But just know that there are ramifications. Part of our accountability is built off of the number of kids that take and pass advanced placement tests. So we are trying to encourage children to take the test by making it a requirement before they sign up for the AP course. If we take that away, we could lose some of the kids who otherwise were passing, and that contributes to our accountability rating. So that's kind of the series of dominoes that we're looking at. We did not build AP fees into the current budget because it's never been something that we've had to consider before. You can see that this decision came out on April 17th, which under normal circumstances would be right around the day of our all-day referendum. So it wouldn't have made its way into this year's budget either. So that's kind of where we are. It's really just informational purposes. And then we, you know, I think we just have to make a decision going forward. Either we're budgeting for a new expense, or we're going to make it optional and see what happens, and we can reassess at that point.
Any questions?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Jerry.
So that is the requirement now in order to get credit for the high school class, they have to take the AP test?
So they get credit for the high school for passing the class, but one of the requirements written into the program of studies is that if you take the AP class, you're required to take the AP test. That's a strategy that a lot of schools use because again, you need the kid to be motivated to do the work and to prepare for that AP test. It's something that all the AP teachers do a really good job at. I mean, I'm getting texts as we speak that the teachers are not in favor of making it an option, because I think it kind of puts some pressure on the kid to do the work and to do the right thing so that they can pass that test. And if they know that they don't have a choice to take the test, it kind of changes some of their motivation. I don't know what the end result will be, but here's the situation that we're in. If things go back to normal next year and the AP test is given at the normal time, and currently it's a requirement, then we need to figure out a way to put the money in the budget, about $20,000 of fees into the budget. I could work on that, but you know where our budget stands at this present time. So it's a challenging discussion. The other option is we make it so that it's not a requirement, and then the issue that's raised in this decision is not relevant anymore.
Any questions, comments?
Just one final question. Just on that cover page of that decision, the decision was held that you can't require the parents to pay the fee. So would that mean it makes it mandatory for the district to pay for all of them?
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yep. So, I mean, if you think about it, a kid, some of our students leave our school with, 5, 6 AP credits when all is said and done. That's more than a semester of college.
Right.
And in some places, the amount of money for a semester of college far exceeds the $90.
Right. So to me as a parent, that has value to me. In tuition, I might not have to pay at the college level. Yeah. So if it were optional as a parent and I'm able, I would still want to pay for it. I wouldn't necessarily, I know where this went, but I wouldn't assume that it's the district's responsibility to set my student up for skipping ahead in college. I
agree with you, but I don't really say any longer. I don't know.
No.
I'm on the same wavelength as
Terry,
AP. But I'm thinking so I know it'll affect our AP national score, whatever that, there's a name for that. But I feel like if we make it optional, the kids are still going to try really hard because they have the extra points in there towards the GPA.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like if we make it optional also, the kids who are going to use it for college credit, they're going to want to take the AP exam and they can pay for it, because if it's optional, then we don't have to ask the parents for the money. And the kids who can't use it for college credits wouldn't take it. And to be honest with you, they may not put 100% effort into the test anyway, because they can't use it for college credit. And those are the kids that we'd be paying, have to come up with the $20,000, that money to pay for them. So I don't know that it's necessarily a negative to go optional, but I'll leave it up to Jim to do more research with the teachers.
Yep.
Oh, I don't really need to do much more research. They oppose it. They want it to be mandatory, and they believe that it kind of forces the kids to put in maximum effort, because because they want to do well on the test. But if they had the option of not taking the test, I believe that, there are some that wouldn't. And it's because, in their senior year, for example, when the majority of the AP tests, AP courses are taken, there's a lot that's going on. And if they had the option of saying, I'm not going to take that test because I need to remove something off of my plate, they may take that option.
But the only thing that would impact would be our AP credit, if you will, like as far as
No,
right?
no, it's a major variable that's built into the state accountability system.
Oh, okay.
And that's relatively new. I think the first time that happened was last year. And, we've done a really good job of increasing our offerings and increasing enrollment in those offerings. We continue to make the AP honor roll list. I think this would be potentially a step backwards in terms of the number of tests taken if we make it optional. I don't know, because I've never worked in a district where it was optional. It was always mandated in my previous district and in this district. So I can only guess, but I know from the field, our field, the AP teachers who have texted me during this meeting, that they oppose the decision to make it optional.
Yeah. Well, if it has a negative impact on the district too, and
Yeah,
the teachers are opposed to it, I don't know, then we'll have to find the money.
I mean, I can, there's still some massaging of the budget that needs to be done, as we do every year. The budget was passed based on projected savings because we're never at a place where we have the high school schedule done, the number of courses, the actual staffing that's needed. We always have some changes that occur. We had a couple of leaves of absence that came in yesterday and today. Couldn't even get them in this packet because they didn't come in time. They'll go on the next agenda. I can build in whatever savings I know about now, because I know a lot more now than I did at the time that the school committee passed the budget, and that's what we're working towards. If we have room to stay within the school committee approved budget, I can build it in, if that's the direction that you want to go. If I cannot build it in under the current school committee approved budget, that's a different problem. But maybe we just wait and see based on the work that we're doing to finalize the budget, to match the budget to the number that was approved at the school committee level.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Very good.
This could be an example of standing still and getting struck by lightning. All of a sudden we get this piece of mail from the law firm of Hennius, Carroll, and Lombardo. And,
you know what? Standing still and getting struck by lightning is going to be a lot less painful than what we're going through.
Okay. All right. Let's go to unfinished business 4A. We have the vendor contract discussion.
You want to start this one, Bob?
Turn on your sound, Bob.
A button every spouse wants. So included in your packet is the Ocean State Transit, the in-district transportation. The superintendent, certainly Andrew, probably Claudine at your level too, and many of you around the Zoom monitors here. The transportation is something that is just, it's mind-numbing when you start to think of what it will look like in September if things don't change for the better. And part of what we're going to be relying on in September is our transportation providers to be at the ready whenever we get the decision or told what the decision is. But in the interim, we have a quarter of the school year that we're not running buses. And at the last meeting, the ask or the direction from the school committee was to return back to the vendor, Ocean State, in asked them specifically what they were looking for. And there's multiple pages of winding of the case and how we got to where we are. But in the packet on the very last page is their ask, which is basically their operating expenses for the months of April, May, and June. And that's to keep things like the leases, the barn, the maintenance. Scott, who's on the line, but he's as an audience member, but to keep him ready, because there is going to be a lot of work ahead of us once we have a final plan to come back to school. And so the ask is on a monthly basis, roughly about a $54,000 ask. It comes up to $162,000 for the 3 months under consideration, April, May, and June. And that's still, we have a cost avoidance of over $400,000 that we're saving because we're not paying monitors, drivers, and for the buses to run. And, I just can't impact enough say it strongly enough that I just feel once we're given the decision, I don't even know how all of us on this call are going to respond, because we're not the only ones who are going to be responding. There'll be 36 other districts responding. And we want to have our vendors very close to us. We want to have people that are going to be responsive to us. And I just looked at the budget.
Talk to you later.
The Ocean State contract next year in the 21 budget is worth $2.1 million to us. So that shows you the importance of that contract in making us a successful district. And what really has me a bit concerned is we will get no quarter at all on special services for the most vulnerable kids. And I think I've done the Green Mile walk with Andrew a couple of times up to Ride and been told by Mr. Ponarelli, go back and figure out something else because you need to transport these kids. So that's kind of that's everything in a nutshell, if you will. I did receive one piece of information that was not in the packet. It came from the Commissioner of Education. It came out late last week or just after the packet was submitted. And basically there's a section in her memo which addresses the CARES Act. And the CARES Act requires that it's an eligibility requirement for accessing funds. It says the CARES Act does provide that LEAs should pay such contractors to the greatest extent practicable, and LEAs could be found ineligible for CARES Act support if they fail to do so. So there are a lot of unknowns right now, but what the school committee has in front of them is what they asked me to get from the provider, which was, what do you need in order to ensure that we're going to have a continuity of business once we have answers to how we're going to open up? And the ask from Ocean State is the 34% or $162,000 for the months of April, May, and June. The 162 is total. And I'll stop talking after this. Some of our surrounding districts have already agreed to this language and are making the payments. The state of Connecticut is making the statement, making the payment. I believe it's under executive order. Little Rhode Island is leaving it up to every district to make their own way.
So if I could just add a little bit more information. So connected to this discussion is reentry to school. What I didn't talk about in the 2021 budget discussion was that under that budget, under that item on the agenda was really, what are the recurring costs that it takes to run the district? That's what we include in the annual budget. There are a lot of conversations that are happening right now about reopening and some restrictions and some safety precautions that will likely be in place. And that includes PPE, personal protective equipment, increased cleaning, sanitation, which will require supplies and staff in order to make that happen. These are all things that we are told to project will happen. And one of the most potentially costly is restricting the number of children who can ride on a bus at any given time. And if you think about that, we have about 20 buses in our fleet. I'm going to guess that at least 60% of them have ridership above 15 or 20. And so if restrictions are put in place, we're going to need to work closely with the bus company for an extended period of time on developing a plan to make all of this possible. Or else we're not going to be able to open up school, even if we're allowed to under the governor's orders, because we will need to submit a plan about how we're going to make all of this stuff happen. So it's a connected discussion in the sense that we are saving some money right now, but it would be really foolish for us to put that money, to assign that money for recurring expenses to lower next year's budget, because we need to prepare for lots of added expenses given the new rules that are going to be in place. The CARES Act would potentially provide us some relief, but I don't think there's anybody on this call that believes that we're going to get 100 cents on the dollar for every added cost that we need to incur as a result of restrictions that are in place. So we need to make sure that we are in the best standing in terms of qualifying for CARES Act money. We really want to make sure that we have access to our transportation vendor in terms of preparing for the opening of school, if that's even a possibility at this point in time. And so the other argument is a little bit of math today. So this was something that we talked about on one of my calls today with some of my colleagues across the state. There are some districts that are at a phase in their contract with their transportation company where they had to go out to bid. And so they're bidding in the middle of the pandemic. They're bidding in the middle of a period of time when many districts have said we're not paying because of non-service. All of those communities that went out to bid reported back on the results of the bid. And the average is about a 16% hike. So I'm just going to guess that part of the reason for the hike is that we're trying to make up the difference in terms of lost revenue from what's happened this year. This is just my guess, not proof. I don't have proof of it, but it's just the way that things work, So I just did a little math problem. And I said, imagine if our expenses were $300,000 a month, which they're not. Bob just reported that they're lower than that, but I used 300,000 because it's an easy number. If we paid 33 cents on the dollar, we'd pay 100,000 and save 200,000, and it would be for a period of 3 months. So we would pay 300, we would save 600 as opposed to saving 900 up front. If we were one of those districts that were going out to bid next year and we got a 16% increase, that's based on some real numbers that I just collected today during the conversation that we had at RISA. Marie was on the call as well with me. 16% of a $300,000 a month expense times 10 months, $3 million, 16% increase, $480,000. So, and again, there's no guarantees and there's a lot of variables in play here, but we could be in a position where we save 9 now and then get a massive wallop at the time that we're required to renegotiate because and again, it's business, right? But the vendors are going to try to recoup the lost revenue. And so in a year or 2 years, the total increase is going to far exceed the $300,000 that we would pay up front, potentially. Again, there's a lot of unknowns and a lot of variables that are in play. But that, I just, like, when I was listening to the conversation, I said, I need to do out the math just to see what that means. So I figured I'd share that with you. We're not in the position where a contract is up at the end of this year, so we're not the same as those districts that are out for bid right now. But it certainly is something for us to keep in mind, on top of the fact that we're really worried about access to the vendor over the summer because of the significant restrictions that we believe will be in place. So those are the arguments on one side. I have had some conversations with Andrew, with Bob, with Claudine as we've been prepping for the meeting. You know, the bus company itself is not a small town bus company. The bus company is a major company that is traded on the stock market. The stock is traded on the market. So we're not talking about a little mom and pop shop in Exeter. This is a big company. And I think that's a consideration that's important to some of the members that are on the committee. And I think it's important to share because it's come up in the conversation. This is not about saving the clerk at the corner store in our little town of West Greenwich or Exeter. This is a big national company with pretty significant amount of money available to them. However, regardless, it is a company. They work as a business. They are going to try to recoup their losses, and they are going to do it through the bidding process and the renegotiating process for districts when the contract is up. And we already see evidence that it's occurring for those districts that are at that stage of the process this year. Unfortunately for them, fortunately for us, we're not at that point. So those are kind of the arguments across the board. I don't know if I missed anything, Bob, but I will kind of leave it for the school committee to discuss, ask questions, and hopefully we'll just have a vote one way or the other about the direction that you want us to go.
Lee, hold on 1 second. I just want to ask one question. When is our bus contract up?
4 years. So we're in year one.
Of what?
2021 will be year two. So then it's 3 years after that.
It's a 3-year contract and we're in year one right now?
It's a 5-year. We're in year one. So we're finishing year one and getting ready to head into year two in September.
Okay, so that's good news. Okay, Lee?
Question for Andrew. Is there any risk if we don't pay the ask? Is there any risk that we wind up in a breach of contract situation and then we wind up having to face the music sooner than 4 years down the road?
No, in my opinion, there's no legal obligation to pay given the circumstances. Legal obligation. I'm not discounting what the superintendent and Bob have just said at all, but from a legal perspective, no.
I have a lot to say, but I'll wait for you guys. Lee, you have more?
No,
Bob?
I wanted the legal opinion.
Bob?
Yes.
Paul, hold on 1 second. Lee was speaking. Lee, go ahead.
No, I'm all set. I wanted the legal opinion. I mean, there's moral and ethical issues associated with this. And we definitely need bus service in the fall, but I wanted the legal opinion. I'm good.
Okay. Paul, go ahead.
So Bob, if I'm being asked to make a financial decision, I got a question that hasn't come up yet, but I saw it on, the Gina Governor show, and she put out the possibility that there could be changes for state school aid funding. Has there been any discussion regarding state school funding for 2021?
No, just nothing official coming out of my group, Riasbo. Everybody's just kind of holding on tight to see what comes out.
So you're saying the financial decision, if I have to make one tonight, if there's a vote, is today. You have not heard that we're taking any cuts, right?
Correct.
From the state. All right.
Correct.
Actually, Paul, to answer your question, I was on the website in April. I think it was April 16th, and we got a little bit of money back.
Right.
Well, I'm just talking about the Corona thing, but okay, fine.
So the only discussions, I know I wasn't asked the question, but the only discussions that I've had at my level with my colleagues are that, yes, there is a projected shortfall of revenues at the state level based on the pandemic. And there was $1.25 billion that came to the state with some broad direction on how that money could be used. And what I have heard from even the governor's office when that individual was on the RISA call is that they're working really hard to figure out how that money might be applied to make the school aid whole for the next fiscal year. And I don't know that they've figured it out yet. I don't know if they've, that they've been working with the Rhode Island legislation, Senator Reed in particular, to try to make sure that they're making decisions that are compliant with the regulations that were sent to us with that money. But they've indicated that they're working hard to try to figure out how to make school aid whole. That's been the discussion that I've had. So nothing in writing, nothing definitive, but those are the discussions.
Okay, other
Claudine,
comments on the
I have a question.
Yep, go ahead.
Go ahead, so actually it's for Jim. Do you have any idea of a timeline with any of the projected like restrictions or whatever is happening going forward in the fall? Because I mean, we only have a month left of the school year, and in the packet that we got about this bus company, the letter, I believe it's from Tony Murgo to Bob, is a little disturbing because not only do you have to worry about the restrictions, but now you have to worry about licenses and, all these other variables that could hold up a lot of things.
And that's part of the ask, they need capital to run their business. And,
right.
I can pretty much tell you that it's not a threat. It's just the way it's gonna happen. If there is not a amended to the contract, which is, hey, this is what it costs to run the contract for the 3 months. This is our ask. That the doors are going to close, and they'll start answering the phone on August 15th. I don't want it to, it's not threatening. It's just a brutal reality. It's a brutal reality. That's what we're up against.
I know.
So I have a lot of concerns.
It stinks for everybody.
Well, and then you don't even know if they're going to have things that you don't know yet, like if there'll be double sessions or busing kids half the day and then the other group the other half. I mean, there's so many what ifs.
And all of those things continue to be talked about, but basically the discussion is we need to start thinking outside of the box for how we might lower the congestion of children in any building at any given time. But the parameters and the guidelines around what the group should be limited to have not been given, and they've basically indicated that they will continue to change based on the trends that occur over the next several months.
Right, and I do hope that, I hope it's not a blanket statewide thing, because I mean, down in our end, we've had a very, very minimal amount of cases. So I don't feel like we should be doing the same exact thing as Providence does. You know what I mean? I think they should be taking things like that into consideration.
Well, there's no differentiation in graduation plans, if that's any indication of where we're about to go.
I know. Can we run
throw
the
that
state?
out
We
there.
could do a better job.
Anybody could do a better job.
So I
Excuse me,
just want to,
Claudine.
oh, go ahead. So I have a lot to say. Terry, you want to go first?
I have a question, and then, Bob, our quarterly customary transportation cost is how much? You're muted, Bob. Bob, you're muted.
He's researching right now.
No, he's talking, but he's got the.
That's why you chew gum.
Okay.
For the Ocean State portion is in district represents 562 on a quarterly basis.
Okay, that's what I thought.
And
So,
then there's some additional, there's probably about another 200,000 for the out of district, which moves all our special needs students,
right,
which Ocean State steps into the fray when statewide cannot do that work for us. So Ocean State, that's an added benefit. And if there was ever a time when the adage, the good Lord helps those who help themselves, we are there. Because I have no faith in, I am really nervous about out of district transportation next year.
Understood.
Very, very nervous.
so if I could just follow up, I'm just going to leave my opinion out there, is that, you know, I know that we have to be critically concerned with our expenses, and there are so many unknowns and so many what ifs. And my own feeling is that Ocean State has been a good partner with us, and I want to continue to foster that relationship if we can. Just as we don't know what the fall will hold and what our requirements will be for, you know, transporting and spacing students, they don't know either. So, you know, we're asking them to be nimble and responsive. We have responsibilities to our special needs students. I think a lot of parents will choose to transport their own children if at all possible when school goes back.
I've heard that, Terry.
Yep. So I think, you know, there's a lot of variables, there's a lot of balls in the air, there's a lot of uncertainty. And I just, I feel that we've had a good partnership with Ocean State. I think the suggestion of paying the administrative costs for the quarter, for me, is reasonable. Even though we have legal alternatives, I'm comfortable with that.
So I did a little bit of research because I was thinking of Ocean State Transit, maybe how it was back in 2011 and prior. It was more of a, I'm going to call it a mom and pop operation. And then this large company, Student Transportation, purchased it. So they service schools in Rhode Island, Connecticut, Vermont, New Hampshire. There may be other districts or other states that they've taken on since this press release that I read. But my concern is, what if we decide, okay, we're going to spend right now anyway $162,000.
I think Claudia was dropped off or something.
Yeah. What happened?
You back yet, Claudine?
Lost her. I don't hear it.
Wonderful thing.
Across the country.
There you
So
go.
we could be looking at some kind of bailout that's needed for bus companies. So I'm not I'm not opposed to talking about it when the time comes. I do think that if the federal Department of Education doesn't do anything, if the state says, nope, we're not helping out with the bus transportation, and it comes down to the local level, I'm not opposed to doing what we need to do to work with our bus company. But I am worried that if we do expend this money, August, and we may not even have a bus company. I don't know. I'm just throwing it out there. So it's also it's a large company. Like I said, they're on the stock market. I mean, I don't know if they've had any opportunities to take out loans through any of the programs that are offered. But I mean, I don't know. I know it's a different animal, but there's companies out there that, they bill their clients for the hours that they've worked on their files. But when they can't pay their insurance, they don't go back to their client and say, oh, I can't pay my insurance. Can you please, pay, $50 this month towards my insurance? So I'm kind of looking at a complete different perspective. I know it's a lot of what ifs, but I don't, right now anyway, I'm not on the page where I'm ready to expend the taxpayer money, not even knowing what the condition of this bus company is going to be when our kids go back to school. The other thing to take into consideration, I know nobody wants to hear this, but the health professionals stated today on the news, the fall is not going to look very favorable to school starting up again. Now, I know we don't all know what's going to happen, but I mean, this could go on for another 6 months, another year. I just think I just think to act now to pay them, not knowing if we're even ever going to see, that money come to fruition and be utilized the way it needs to be utilized. I think that if we wait and the time comes and there's no bailout, there's no feds, there's no state, it comes down to the local level. Again, more than happy to work with our bus company, do what we need to do to get our schools going. But I think there's a lot of different things to take into consideration with expending this money right now. And we're not in a violation with our contract or not in breach and not paying it. We're not getting the services right now. So to basically what we're saying is we're willing to help out your company stay afloat is really what it comes down to. It's not paying for any services that they're providing us. Well, there's a lot of companies out there that are in the exact same position. And again, I know it's a different animal. It's a bus company serving school districts. But I don't know. I just want to throw all that out there. I know it's a lot to chomp on, but I'm kind of taking a different perspective than I think if it was a mom and pop bus company and it was our bus company, or not ours, but a bus company that we were utilizing in maybe a few districts in the state of Rhode Island. And we talked to those school districts and everybody was on the same page as to how we were treating the bus company. So we can all move forward in August when we need to. I think it's a different story. Right now, we don't know if that money is going to go to the top executives and it's not going to go where it needs to go. I don't know. I mean, we don't know where that money is going right now. So I just want to throw all that out there.
Bob, this is Paul. I'm confused. The money that you're asking for, what was it, 160, 50,000 bucks?
162,476.
Is that for?
Go ahead.
Is that for March, April, May, or is it between June, July, and August? I'm confused. What's the money for?
April, May, and June.
Oh, all right. Aren't they providing us something?
Paul, if you look in your packet under the, there's a packet for the Ocean State Transit Conversation. The last page on the back, it tells you the period that it covers, April, May, June, and it tells you what the money is for. So it's for insurance, operating expenses, operating wages, maintenance expenses, maintenance wages, facility, admin expenses, interest expense.
Sure.
It's not, it's not for the bus services that we utilized for our students that we've already paid.
But isn't that basically overhead that we would be paying on top of the cost of transporting the children? So they're reserving these vehicles at that expense rate for our use, right? So I would consider that overhead, right?
That's their.
So it's just to maintain those. Okay, Bob, you want to say something?
That's to maintain. That's their position.
That's their position.
Okay. What's so unreasonable about that?
Well, another position you could take is that when they invoice a company in the amount that they're going to charge a company to utilize a bus, in that amount, they're taking into consideration, I'm billing you $300 because I need to pay my insurance, I need to pay my employees, I need to pay for gas. Like that's, that comes into play when you invoice somebody. That's how they calculate how much they should charge somebody. So we've paid for what they've charged us, right? But now they're saying, well, we have insurance expenses, we have operating expenses, we have expenses to keep our company afloat.
Well, I thought I just heard that these were overhead expenses for the maintenance and preservation of those buses that we had contracted for without drivers, without monitors.
And without
what?
And no fuel cost either.
And no fuel cost. So, I mean, it sounds like to me, I'm not a lawyer, right? Right? But it does sound like these are normal incurred expenses for reserving vehicles throughout the school year that we contracted for. That's what it sounds like to me. And it should be out. We should meet our obligation in that regard. We're not paying for the fuel. We're not paying for the monitors. We're not paying for the buses themselves, but we did reserve those vehicles for our use over that period that we had no control over, they had no control over. So I think that's kind of reasonable on our part to pay that amount. And I think it would go a long way as far as preserving our relationship with the bus company. And you're right, it is a big bus company, but it's run by local people. And that's how I feel.
Well, it's run by people. It's not run by local people.
No, it is run by local people.
Well, they're the managers of that depot, correct? But they're not there's I'm sure this company has an executive board, right?
So Ocean State is owned by STA, but they are a standalone. They stand on their own. They have their own president, lives in Middletown, Rhode Island. So they're a standalone company. The clumsy, analogy I use is you own a McDonald's. It's a big corporation. If your franchise fails, they're not coming in to save you. That's kind of how STA is looking at Ocean State. We're here to help you more with regulatory kind of compliance and bigger things, and you're part of the portfolio. But if you fail on your own, we're not coming in to bail you out.
And correct me if I'm wrong, Bob, but they bought new buses for us under this contract, right? Those are all brand new buses. They have mortgage on those things.
Correct.
So let me just ask, if Student Transportation Inc., the mother company, if for some reason they fold, or for some reason they need more money to stay afloat, how does our local depot, if you will, like, where does that come into play? So if Student Transportation folds, I'm assuming Ocean State would fold also. No?
They would probably give them the buyout option to rebuy it. But I don't know. That's going down. That's way down a road that, if we get to that scenario, we're probably going to have a lot bigger problems.
Oh yeah.
Transportation.
Well, I think transportation is going to be a big problem anyway.
I know, but I'm just saying if STA, the scenario you put out was if they folded, it'd be there'd be a ton of other problems probably going on in the world.
Yeah.
Claudine?
Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you. First of all, I think all business is local business. There are Rhode Island employees that are employed by this company. And then at our meeting on April 14th, the motion that was passed by unanimous vote of the members present was for our district to offer to amend the district's contract to pay for actual services rendered during the emergency until such time as schools reopen, retroactive to March 13th. So
Correct.
isn't this amount that's being discussed, wasn't that our offer? No?
That doesn't look like that to
No,
me.
the last vote that was taken at the last meeting was to pay for services rendered, not to pay the overhead and the maintenance and whatnot
Okay.
they're asking. But with that said, Mr. Ross, at the close of last night's meeting, did request of the committee, and they agreed to allow him to go back and actually see what it is that Ocean State Transportation was looking for and to justify it, which is what they've had, which is why it's back tonight.
Okay. Thank you.
Cheryl,
Okay.
what are your thoughts?
Hmm?
Cheryl, what are your thoughts?
Me?
Yes?
Well, I disagree with Claudine. I think that if we don't reopen schools, and I think they're going to try hard to, you're going to see a revolt of parents across the state. I
agree with that.
I'm not even kidding. I think people are, and I know distance learning is going well, Jim. I'm not saying it's not, but I'm doing distance learning and I'm ready to throw my computer out the window. It's just not a way to educate children. We have to we have to look at this. We can't hide in a bubble forever. These kids are the least vulnerable population. I do believe we're going to be going back with an interesting way of doing it, but we got to think outside the box. And I just think that, this is not a huge amount of money to keep, just to keep our relations good. And hopefully, no matter what it looks like in the fall, it's going to be different. And we're going to have to work with them. And nobody could predict what could have happened. So I just think we need to stick with it. And
Hey, Cheryl, just to be clear, I agree with you 100%. I think distance learning is going well, but it is not ideal.
Right.
It's not. And these kids, I have two teenagers, and they're, I'm so glad they're not 5 and 7 years old because, it's just not. It's not the same. It's not the same.
100% agree.
So just so you all know, I'm in total agreement with all that. Also, I didn't say any. I hope I didn't say that I thought virtual learning was fabulous.
No.
The only reason I brought up not knowing when the virtual learning was going to have to come, was going to come to an end, was because I was just throwing it out there as to what our, how we're going to have to work with the bus company, and at that time we would work with them to, figure out how much to pay. It's such an unknown right now. So trust me,
it is
I'm
an unknown
age as everybody else with the distance learning.
I just think that I lost my train of thought here. I don't think they're going to wait 6 months. And to me, September is such August and September. I'm hoping the virus is even less and less. I mean, that's just the way viruses work anyway. To wait until January when it's flu season, strep season, stomach bug season, and then start then makes absolutely no sense. I think you have to just give it a go. And I mean, a lot of people are talking about homeschooling. So, I mean, you don't want to go in that direction either because you're going to lose a lot of people.
Yeah.
So
if
schools don't open, there's going to be a lot of dominoes that fall not in the direction you want them to.
Yeah. So Cheryl, we're talking about virtual learning, and I think we're all on the same page with that. So I know Andrew's got to go to a different school committee meeting. I really want to stay on the bus topic. So, and again, I only brought that up because I was talking about when we're going to have to approach this money that we're going to deal with the bus company. So, okay. So I think we're ready for a vote. So if someone wants to make a motion.
Could I make one suggestion?
Yes, Andrew.
If the vote is to amend the contract, to reflect the numbers here provided. I think that the contract should be amended. It should be amended in writing, but it should also include some safety provisions for the school committee. As someone pointed out, the certification. We don't want to pay all this money and then have folks say, well, we couldn't get people certified, so we're not ready to go in September. I would just caution the committee that, you know, if you're going to make this payment in good faith, and I understand all the reasons, so that's not my point. But my point is you should be getting some assurances on the other end instead of just hey, thanks.
Andrew, I agree. That's why that letter bothered me about that.
It bothers me. It bothers me as well, Cheryl, only because I'm not so sure. The part about, well, these drivers are laid off, so we don't know how to get them certified is troubling. But I think we can work through that. I just want to make sure it's addressed when you do the amendment, if in fact that's the way the committee goes.
No, I agree. That's why one of my concerns was if we pay the money, we don't even know how it's going to be utilized or where it's going to be utilized. And so what if the vote is, to, somebody makes a motion to approve the request and that sum certain, but with, I'm trying to think out loud here. Andrew, I'm trying to think of something where the vote is the legal counsel has to work with Ocean State or has to work with Ocean State Transit to work out the legal language. I don't know.
Yeah, I think the vote should be something that you approve the requested amendment to the contract subject to agreeable terms and conditions. And then, you know, Bob and Ocean State can continue to work on it. I can jump in if needed and if necessary. And at the next meeting, we can bring an amendment back to you that you can actually, see and rubber stamp. Or not rubber stamp, but see and approve or disapprove.
And Andrew, what you're talking about are just a list of reasonable assurances that will be ready to go for the.
Yeah, I want to assure everyone, I'm not talking about new things that need to be done. I'm not talking about trying to leverage the situation. I'm just talking about you're making a good faith payment, and all the reasoning that you've given is solid, and I understand all of it, but you want to just get as many protections as you can to ensure that the payment is, number one, appreciated, and number two, you're in the best spot to open when you can be. They're not going to be able to guarantee that they'll certify everybody, but we want to have language in there that protects you guys to the extent possible. And I don't think it's unreasonable, given that you're agreeing to pay 34% of the cost.
It makes sense.
Right. Yeah.
So there should probably be also something in there that says like we're not waiving any of our rights and under the contract, because right now we don't have the legal obligation to actually pay them. Like I don't want to waive that whole provision.
I think if the committee votes to agree to the request subject to a further review of the contract amendment, then you're fine. Because if we can't agree to a contract amendment, or if the amendment comes back and you're not happy with the terms, then there's no deal. But you're basically signaling to Ocean State Transportation, we're willing to work with the numbers you've given us. We just need some assurances. If we get those assurances, this should be approved at the next meeting. If we don't get the assurances, we're going to continue not to pay for services not rendered.
And Andrew, just one more thing. The vote would be specific to the time frame of April, May, June.
Yeah.
And so if this continued into the next school year, it would have to come in front of the school committee.
That's absolutely, and that would be part of the amendment, Jim. That's one of the things I'm talking about. If we know something different in end of June that we know now, then you may want to do things differently.
Okay.
Right.
Yep.
So based upon all this discussion, and now that I'm thoroughly confused, someone needs to draft a motion, because
I'll read one, Lee. So let's get this one a go. So the motion can be to approve an amendment to the contract between Ocean State Transit and the Exeter-West Greenwich Regional School District to pay the sum certain of $162,476 for the fourth quarter FY 2020 Exeter-West Greenwich. Oh, wait, no, hold on. To approve, go back to the sum certain. for the fourth quarter FY 2020, subject to
Subject to
agreement
agreeable terms and conditions to be approved, or subject to agreeable terms and conditions to be discussed and voted on at a subsequent school committee meeting.
Can't we put this?
Paul, hold on.
Can we put this to bed tonight?
Paul, hold on. Robin, did you get the wording of all that?
No, I did not.
Because I did not write it down. Okay. Robin, I even hate to ask, but can you read what you have?
I'm sorry, I did not get it.
Yeah,
Okay,
you should be able to go back and watch the video. I mean,
Yeah, I can do that.
you want me to
Okay.
take a crack at it, Claudine, slowly?
Go ahead, Andrew.
Okay, and I didn't get exactly what you had either, but I think the easiest thing to do here is you're expressing to Ocean State that you're willing to deal with the numbers that they've provided, subject to terms and conditions that we still need to negotiate. So I think a motion to approve the request from Ocean State Transportation that Exeter-West Greenwich pay $162,476 for the fourth quarter. Subject to the fourth quarter FY 2020, subject to additional terms and conditions to be included in an amendment to the contract, which will be discussed at a subsequent school committee meeting.
Okay, that sounds good.
And the bottom line is, if we can't, and I don't expect this to be the case at all, quite honestly, but if we weren't able to agree to the actual amendment, you guys have to approve the amendment anyway. You guys voted into the contract, then nothing has happened.
That sounds good. So I need somebody to make the motion. You can just say so moved.
So moved.
Move.
Okay, so Terry Donovan was so moved. Lee, you're a second?
Second.
Lee's a second. Any further discussion? Okay, I'll take a roll call vote. Member Kissinger?
Aye.
Nope. Hold on a second. I just lost all of you. Okay, sorry. I hit a button. You all disappeared. Okay, Member Kissinger is an aye. Member Donovan?
Aye.
Member Green?
Aye.
Member McFadden?
Aye.
And I'm a nay. So it's 1, 2, 3. So it's 4-1, Robin.
Okay.
All right,
Motion
folks, I have to
carries.
go. Have a good rest of the night.
Thank
We'll
you,
talk.
Andrew.
Thank you,
Bob, we'll
Andrew.
talk
Good
tomorrow.
Aye.
Thanks, Andrew.
Okay, we'll move on to 4B. We have capital bond discussion.
So enclosed in the packet is just I just wanted to provide the committee with the chronology of events that's going on regarding the capital projects and the bond. The focus right now is on the summer projects, which include the Wawaloon boiler and the safety at the Metcalf School. The activity has been mostly relegated to phone calls, a couple of visits to the physical plants, but RIDE has moved all of their approval process through via Zoom or just through email correspondence. The architect is working on getting the boiler project into their hands as we speak, and We're just waiting for RIDE to give us the go-ahead. At some point, we're going to have to convene a building committee meeting, and I'll have to rely on or ask Jeremy to step in and set up those Zoom meetings. The bond project is moving along. Lou and his team are continuing to look at the scope of work, which was roughly the $17 million. Well, they had a lot of those drawings and cost estimates. They're revising, they're doing all the editing that's necessary for that. And he feels that we should be fine for September submittal.
Any questions? Everybody's good? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we have important dates and meetings. We have Tuesday, May 26th, a school committee meeting, Wednesday, June 10th, school committee, and Tuesday, June 23rd, school committee. We will not be going into executive session. So, Jim, are you all set with everything?
I'm all set.
Hey, Claudia, I have a question. Oh, go ahead.
I just wanted to say, and I will, I'll do a little bit of work tomorrow, and is tomorrow Wednesday? Yes. So
Yes.
tomorrow and Thursday, and you know, we have the potential of scheduling an additional meeting for the purpose of approving a new timeline for the budget approval process. I'll keep you guys in the loop on that once I know more and I work with the boards of canvassers.
Okay, sounds good. Cheryl, you had a comment?
It's probably for Jim. I was just curious. I know that like the phases, you're able to be with 5 people, and then she was going to up it to 10, but she didn't. I was just curious if we were ever going to meet in person, because I think we could probably separate pretty well.
Well, right now we're still
Like
at 5. So.
We're still at 5 now, but I know each phase is 2 weeks. I don't know, like if it lets up to 10, would we meet again? Or are we just going to continue this throughout the summer?
I think if the guidelines would allow us to meet in a group that is under the size, then I would just leave it up to the committee on what they're comfortable with. Because we could continue to do it this way, or we could even do a combination where you know, the body meets live, but if there's somebody that feels uncomfortable, they could kind of Zoom in to join us. I think there's a lot of options, but I'm not really. I'll do whatever the committee wants me to do as long as it is within the rules that are in place at the time of the meeting.
Okay, so we're not going to discuss this right now because it's not on the agenda. So save the comments for when it comes on the agenda if we need to discuss it again. Andrew's not here and he'll tell me not on the agenda.
You're
Good
right.
student.
You are right.
Okay, everybody's good. So we will need a oh, go ahead, Lee.
Yeah, just a suggestion, and it was on the agenda, but you might want to touch base with the town officials just to let them know what we're doing besides the board of canvassers, Jim.
Yeah, I wrote that down on my list of follow-up items already, but thank you for the reminder.
Yeah. Okay. All right, very good. We have a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
We have a second.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And motion carries.
Aye.
Thank you, everyone. Jeremy, thank you so
Thank
much
you.
for helping us out. Have a
Thank
good
you.
night.
Thanks, everyone.
everyone.
Good night.
Thank you.
Thanks.
I'll call
Bye-bye.
you tomorrow, Robin, okay?
Okay.
All right,
Night.
thanks.
Good night.
Thanks, Terry. Thanks, Claudine.
Yep, thank you.